Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. Up next, we have another fascinating guest on the line. She is a transformational healer, healing spiritual entrepreneurs, finding clarity in expanding their consciousness. She is a psychic consultant, a psychic medium, intuitive spirit channeler that is helping others to become self-actualized. She is an archangel life coach and Reiki master and author of She Rises Tomorrow. I'd like to welcome Joy Rachelle to the show. How you doing, Joy?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me, Dylan. I'm really excited.
Excited to have you. Where are you joining us from today?
I am currently from Saskatchewan, Canada. So, Northern Canada.
Very good. Very good. So I guess to maybe touch on kind of what you do, what is some of the work that you are doing that helps spiritually ground others? Because I thought in the opening, it was a fascinating kind of thing that you're helping other psychic mediums and working with people like that.
So I help them with grounding, with really like learning how to harness like their psychic abilities, or I call them their magical gifts and abilities. Because I know like when I first started in my spiritual journey with my psychic abilities, it just felt like overwhelming. And I couldn't find, I was in part of like membership groups and stuff, but I couldn't find like exactly like where I fit in, like the specific symptoms and stuff that I was experiencing. And so now I have like this system in place where I make like, I call them containers, like psychic containers for my clients, where it's like, okay, let's like take the things that you want and would like to experience, let's put them in a box. And then all the other things that you're hearing about that make psychic abilities scary for you, like we'll just keep them out, right? And it's just like, yeah, putting it in a box and that's you now, right? Like those are your abilities, right? And setting those strong intentions and containers.
So you're a little bit different than, your average psychic medium then.
I guess I would say that, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so. So you talk about, self-actualization and helping others to find that. This is kind of like one of my life goals and perhaps possibly some of the reasons why I do podcasting. Why is this so important to you?
For me, self-actualization is finding your purpose. And that's important for me. And I think it's important for so many of us because that's essentially what this like gnawing feeling is, how I describe it, that like our soul is pulling us towards, to be and do something bigger than we currently are, right? And it's like sometimes diving into like the deep end of the pool and you're like, but I don't know how to swim, right? But it's doing it anyway with that trust in your spirit team,
right?
Your spirit connection, but they have your back. And then when you come into that self-actualization, it's like, for myself and for clients that I've helped, it's like a piece just like clicks together, right? It's like, oh, like I understand like why everything's kind of happened to me up until this point. I understand this like gnawing feeling that's like I've been feeling pulled to do like these things. Like I actually understand what it means now. And so then it's like when you become anchored into that, it becomes easier to show up like every day in your work that you're doing, because you have that big picture of what your big mission is, instead of just kind of doing it for like, oh yeah, like it'd be cool to make like 6 figures this year, or to pay off my debt. Like it's got to be bigger than that, right? The motivation than the manifesting.
That makes sense. So it's kind of like a roadmap or a guide to your purpose, understanding your purpose.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let me ask you a question. How did this all begin for you? Just kind of where did this all get started? Is this something that you picked up on at an early age, or?
Um, I had psychic abilities when I was a kid, and then I shut them off because that's what happens to so many of us, especially in the 80s and the 90s, when it wasn't so open. And um, they really started to awaken probably in, I would say, 2014, 2015. I had some animals that died. Like I had 3 pets all die in a series of like a year from like 2014 to 2015. And in between all of that, I was having like these weird like sensations like in my body. Like I could sense energies, but like I didn't know what it was. And so I would just like, I would wake up in the middle of the night, like go to the bathroom and like just be like, it's okay, like go to the light, go to the light, like, because I had this notion that it was people that were trying to cross over, but they couldn't, right? But I was like, at that point, I was still like scared. So I was just like, just go to the light, just go to the light and like leave me alone. And then my gifts in that started to heighten, right? Because it's like when you go into avoidance of something, it's like the universe is like, no, we're giving you some more. We're going to give you some more. And so I started having like problems like with my vision. Like at night, like I would refuse to drive at night because like it would be so fuzzy, like everything would look fuzzy. And people, then I would research online and then they'd be like, oh, that's visual snow. And, it's like normal. It's like your third eye opening and like all this stuff. But I was like, okay, like, but like, how long is this process going to last? Like, when do I get to another, like the other side of it where I'm able to like drive at night, like if I have to type of a thing. And yeah, so I went on this quest to really figure out what my psychic abilities were. And it wasn't really until I would say like last year that I actually like where I was actually able to zone in and kind of like be like, oh, okay, like I get it. Like, okay, like I get what all my senses do now and how I'm supposed to like use them, to help clients and help the world. So
Interesting. So do you think the loss of the animals maybe helped charge this, like emotionally or?
yeah, emotionally, and it was also like a quest to um know that there's something on the other side, I guess. Like going into like reincarnation and like really diving into what happens after we die. Um yeah, and I had my dad had died in like when I was 22, but that was like 10 years before this like happened. So I think something I was supposed to like go into like this spiritual deep dive kind of like back then because I can pinpoint signs, but I like just wasn't
Ready.
picking up on them. So
Right. That's interesting. That I find that fascinating because I think that happens to a lot of people. Usually, the loss of a parent or a close person, a sibling, or somebody that's close to them, and then that kind of, I don't know if it increases or heightens their awareness, or they become on a quest. They go on a quest or something to try to figure it out, figure out what's going on. Is there life
it's
after
like,
death?
yeah, it's like finding the meaning of life. Like, is this it? Like we live until a certain age and then we just die and go into nothingness, or like what else happens? And
So you mentioned that you pick up on feelings like an empathic feelings. Um,
yeah,
what are your other senses? Are you clairvoyant and clairaudio?
my main ones are clairconsonance, which is a really hard one to really like self-validate, right? Because it's just knowing. It's just clear knowing. So it's like you just know information. And like when I like would talk to clients and stuff, I'm just like speaking and I'm like, I don't know where the messages are coming from. But clients are like, how did you know that? Like, how did you pick up on that? And it's just like, okay, well, okay, like that must be legit. And then I would say my second most strongest clair is clairvoyance and then clairaudience. I like to kind of like pinpoint like claircognizance, clairaudience, and like kind of like telepathy, kind of like sometimes it can seem like it's all like one because it's just, you know it, but you like hear it. So it's,
you kind of
like,
get all the information kind of at once, kind of
yeah,
deal. Yeah.
yeah.
That's fascinating. So you talk about channeling inner earth beings and the intergalactic star beings. What is that exactly for the listeners who might not know?
Okay, so I actually channel an inner earth person, and I and beings, like I connect people to inner earth beings. So like inner earth people are the original humans to planet Earth, and what a lot of people refer to as Atlanteans or Lemurians, but this is like a before time from like before the Atlantis and Lemurias that like we read about, if that makes sense. I'm currently channeling a book on that as well, so it's very
Nice.
interesting.
Nice.
And the inner earth person that I channel, this is actually really interesting, is she's a version of me that's like my parallel life self. Her name is Annabelle, and I channel like vocal technology through her. I like to call them inner earth enchantments. And then I also channel intergalactic star beings. So like when I'm in sessions with clients, it's just like kind of like whoever comes in and has a message and needs to be connected. I like to call myself a matchmaker of I matchmake you with an inner earth person or being or intergalactic star being. And then we solidify that, and then you build your connection, and then you go and do your own thing.
Now these star beings, are they spiritual only? Are they do they have a physical form?
Yeah, they do have a physical form. So in my mind's eye, I see them as they appear. So like some of them, when they were first coming to me in like, I would say 2017, they just showed up as like a blob of color. But now I see them, it's really hard to describe them like from what I see in my mind's eye to like other people. It's like, okay, they're like a purple humanoid, so they're like kind of human-like, but they're like purple and their eyes are bigger, and it's like trying to decipher to somebody else what it is that they actually look like can be a little hard.
That's
So.
interesting. Now, are they? So, where are these beings? Are they in like another dimension, another space and time? What?
So they're in another dimension. They're in another dimension, and like, if we go into like a timeline type of a thing, it's like the past, present, and future all kind of happening at the same time. So when we connect with like galactic star beings, we can connect with them in our like what we know is our present moment, but for them they could be in like their future version of wherever they are, kind of like in their own timeline. Like
Uh-huh.
they have the ability to shift timelines like instantaneously, like we do too, but like not as consciously, like not as fast, like in our awareness, I guess I would say.
Uh-huh. That's fascinating. And that kind of falls in line with, a lot of people's beliefs about time and how it's not really linear and
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Is that kind of your view on it from like what you've heard?
yeah, it's like, yeah, time isn't linear. It's a really hard concept to explain because it's like, okay, time's not linear. There's like all of these times are happening all at like the same time, but we like have our present moment now. And then we're on planet Earth, so like our time is different, but yeah, it's just really hard to explain, like timeline jumping.
Yeah, gotcha. Spirit guides, are you able to, contact, people's spirit guides and I mean, I'm assuming you're in touch with your own spirit guides and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm in touch with my spirit guides, and at the beginning of my career in like 2016, like that's mainly like what I did was channel down information from people's spirit guides and spirit teams. I still do that, but right now, like my focus is mainly inner earth people, inner earth beings, and intergalactic star beings. So I do have access to like all of it and like angels and stuff, but nowadays my focus is just different.
Why is that your focus? Can you elaborate on that? Like, is it?
Okay, it's my focus because it's part of my sole purpose mission is to be like an advocate for inner earth people, and also bridging the gap between inner earth and intergalactic star beings, because there are so many people, especially in the light worker community, who identify as star seeds. And so they're always like, oh, star seeds, like up in like outer space and stuff. And it's like the inner earth people and beings are kind of like, hello, like we're here too. And you need us to like help Earth ascend. So that's mainly why I have changed my focus to inner earth and intergalactic, and it's with connecting them with like clients and stuff. I could connect them with technologies and beings and stuff who can help them invent or like innovate products and just out there things.
Do they have an opinion of Earth and what's going on here?
It is like saddening, I guess, for them. They're trying their best to awaken us so that more of us are consciously aware of what's actually like happening, so that like they can come in and help us. But on planet Earth we have a thing called free will, so if like we're not actively like asking for their help, then if they're just kind of like, well, we're just going to view them on the TV and see what happens and kind of like do our thing. They are trying their best to help us ascend into the highest timeline, because I've seen like, I have a knowing that there's like 1,000 different timelines that are currently kind of like that could play out. So they can't, like when I go and ask them like what's kind of going on in the world right now, I don't get a definite answer, because there's so many different factors and things that are happening in the background that it could go kind of like in so many different directions.
What are
But
some of the timelines? How do they play out?
so one of the timelines is the timeline that we're wanting to hook into is what the spiritual community is calling New Earth, which is basically, it's like where we're all sovereign. And I guess you could think about it kind of like the hippie era, like where it's just kind of like we're free and we're just gonna do what we want and like we're all equal. But like imagine the whole world like that, but also not on drugs. So
Nice.
and it's like different like energy exchanges, and like the monetary system is completely different, and it's just like, hey, like you have this ability, hey, can you come help me with that? Hey, I'm gonna like bargain this like essential oil thing or whatever, this crystal, so that you help me with that, right? Because it's like money and status won't really exist in that society.
Well, there has been somewhat of a shift towards that. No, I don't know if it's a big enough shift, but I've noticed a lot more people talking about it and being like enlightened and awakened. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that that is true as well. But still, there still isn't enough of us in the collective consciousness where all of us are thinking kind of like on the same wavelength. of
Yeah.
what's happening and what's possible.
So what's another one that could potentially play out for us?
Another one is a darker one where we are basically like controlled. We're like, like, and we've seen it kind of happen in the couple of months ago when it like this whole COVID thing first started, right? It's like, like you got to stay in your home, you can't leave. And if people aren't going to do that, then we're going to affect like martial law, especially like in the States and that. And it's like, one of the like worst timelines is like the worst extreme of that. Like if any of you have watched like The Handmaid's Tale, like that TV series or read the book, it's kind of like going back into like that type of a world where it's like we don't have any say in what we do, like who we communicate with, and we don't have basically like any rights. So we definitely don't want that one.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that were to happen, I don't know. I don't know what would be the purpose to incarnate back on Earth.
Yeah. And it'd be
Other,
like, what's keeping us here? Kind of like a thing like, why can't I just, like, I can see a whole bunch of people just like checking out. Like,
yeah,
didn't sign up for this.
yeah,
Bye.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm not coming back. Find somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
So you'd mentioned that in your biography, it mentions that you talk with angels and archangels. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, sorry, I'm just gonna take a sip. When I first started channeling, those were who I mainly connected with was angels and archangels. And they have such a, well, for me, this is my experience with them. I know other readers who, when archangel comes in, it kind of like feels like they're being like, their breath is kind of like taken away because it's like it can feel really heavy for them. And for me, I'm just like, it takes a while. They have to like kind of like go, hey, and I'm like, oh, hi, what can I do for you? Like, because it's just so, it's an energy that I'm so used to that I'm not fully aware sometimes, like when they're in my space. And I've done like channeling work with them with like messages for humanity and messages for clients. And recently when COVID started, they were like, you need to create this 6-week like audio program that is on called mentorships with the archangels. And I was kind of like, okay, but I'm doing inner earth and galactic stuff now. And they're like, no, like you need to do this. And I was like, okay, fine, like I'll create this. And what it ended up being was these channelings of how people can connect with 6 different archangels in their everyday life to kind of like just have that like companionship and know that like somebody is there, and to know specifically like how to connect with these certain different archangels. And what actually it ended up being is arming the listener with what I call, and what's described to me as spiritual armor. So like in an Archangel Michael's one, he like gives you like his sword and like shield and like all of these like extra layers of protection, right? Which totally made sense because living in these times, like we need all of the invisible spiritual armor protection that we can get, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, so I've had a few guests on the show talk about this. So I want to
Okay.
pick your brain a little bit because it's fascinating to me, and it's something that I didn't know much about until I started the show. Dragons and fairies. What you got for me?
I connect with dragons and fairies. They're two uh, different types of energies, definitely, because fairies are more earth-based, but fairies can also, you know how like humans have kind of like an ego type thing. So like we can do like, we can determine with our personal opinion if someone's good or bad. And so with fairies, they can kind of be like that too. So like you'll hear a lot of like tales and like folklore and that of fairies kind of like being mischievous, right? Like like teaching people lessons and things like that. So yeah, you just want to really like honor them and like respect them, and they appreciate it when you like recycle. And um I like to offer them like food, like if I have like extra food that's like gonna go to waste like in my fridge or whatever, be like, hey, like this is for you, like you're welcome to have it, it's like your blessing type of a thing. um and then with dragons is there are so many different types of dragons. um and their energy is just more pure and like powerful. Like when you connect with dragon energy, they're really asking us to stand in our power and be that ferocious dragon that's like burning up, like I guess we would call it like the darkness, right? Just like burning up all the evil and darkness that's in the world and make room for the light to come in.
Now, do these beings they they exist interdimensionally? Do they come back and forth, or are they how does this work?
They are interdimensional, so like fairies are able to come up. They're like they exist like in our world, but they're invisible like to our eyes. um yeah, but sometimes they're easily noticeable like in pictures and stuff. Like you'll see like blobs of different colors and you're like, oh, a fairy. So I always get really excited. And dragons are the same, and then they're with dragons they're fourth dimensional dragons, but then they're also like dragons that go all the way up to like the 33rd dimension. So it's just different energies that they bring in and how they're moving through the dimensions and the energy from that particular dimension that they're bringing to the planet or to the person who's actively working with them.
That's interesting. Now, these fairies, they're more like nature based, right? Are they like outside? Do they
Yeah, they're more nature based. If you would like to connect with them and you don't have like a yard or anything, then you can get plants in your house. For me, I got like a fake plant because I have a cat and she's just really bad. She's really bad with the fake plants too because she's like tries to eat them, which yeah, it's basically just like the fairies kind of like taunting. Be like, ooh, you know, like you're gonna be bad and you're gonna get in trouble, kitty. And it's just like, can't we just have like some peace between the fairies and the animals in the house? So it's kind of funny.
That's funny. What are your thoughts on aliens? I know I'm hitting you with a lot of questions and they're kind of all over, but you cover a lot, so you got some good knowledge.
For me, aliens are intergalactic star beings. They're the star beings. It's just when you use the word like intergalactic star being or galactic star being, it doesn't seem as like you know, like especially to an audience, right? Like, so I usually try to avoid the word alien and ET.
Mhm.
And I'm just following my guidance for what's not going to get also flagged like on Facebook or Instagram, right? Because yeah, I've known a lot of people who have used terms that are like that who have been like all of a sudden like banned for like a month or so and not allowed to post and like all this stuff happening. So you have to be consciously aware. Like,
So are there
posting.
different races of aliens?
Yeah, so there are aliens from like Andromeda, uh, Pleiadians, Sirius. What are some other ones? I'm like drawing a blank. Recently, like a couple months ago, I did some galactic star being connections on a Facebook Live, and a lot of different ones that I'd never heard of before came in, and they're like really hilarious when they come in, because I'll like ask them like, okay, like where are you from? And they'll be like, a galaxy far, far away, and I'm like, that's Star Wars, you know? And they're like, you don't need to know where we're from. This is my name, this is my description, and this is what I'm here to help this particular person with. And I'm like, okay, you know, we can take that.
Are they all helpful?
Not all aliens are helpful. This is something that I try to get across in a lot of my posts and a lot of my Facebook, and I have to do more of it, is energy integrity and connection, right? So it's like, if we're in a low vibe and you're like, oh, I want to try and connect with an alien, right? And like, this is also like discernment for like people who hire like readers or people who can connect you with these people too, is you want to make sure that you and them are in like have a really high like energy like frequency. Like, you don't want to be doing this type of work if you're like, oh, I'm just feeling so down and so depressed, right? Because that allows negative entities to come, and they could attach themselves to you and your energy. And sometimes like people don't even know. And I think that's something that makes people really scared and fearful about working with galactic star beings and aliens and that too. And so like when you come and work with me, like I go through this with you, and I make sure that your energy is high and my energy is high when we do the connections,
Mm-hmm.
just so we're not connecting with the negative ones that are here to, you know, they have their own agenda of, you're like, could be a plaything, right, for them. So
Have any of
don't want
them ever talked about uh, possibly where the origins of humans have come from or anything like that? Because there's a lot of people out there that say that, you know, maybe either we came from somewhere else as humans, or that they've at least our DNA's been messed with.
I'm really glad you asked that question. This is basically like the first couple of chapters of that Inner Earth book that I am channeling down. Is I could clarify more on how humans actually were, like the original human was actually seeded onto planet Earth. But basically, negative entities, negative alien forces came to the planet and had negative agendas. And there was a whole bunch of timelines that kind of played out and were reset. And all of the good galactic star beings kind of like came together and pooled their DNA together for some of the original humans. And a lot of those original humans went down into inner Earth. So like those are like the pure like original human that don't have any of the mix of DNA that we have. And so we all got different DNA from these various star beings. And then the negative forces came down again and basically turned off a lot of the strands of DNA, right? That's why like scientists go, well, why do we have like it? I think is it science, or I'm not sure where I read it, but there's like 12 strands of DNA, but we only have 2 that are like active. So like the majority of our DNA, like 60-70%, is like considered junk. Like they have no idea what it's for. And that's what partly like what my work is, and a lot of other light workers are, is to help activate that DNA within other people.
Is that what's kind of keeps people dormant, or like maybe with like less psychic or spiritual ability? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when we were
Oh, yeah.
first brought down, was the intention for like slaves?
For the negative, the dark forces, then yeah, yeah,
That's interesting, because there's a lot of people that say that. It's, that's why I'm just trying to see kind of where you fall in line with this stuff.
yeah.
It always amazes me, no matter how many people I talk to, like how often people's stories kind of line up.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so I guess I want to ask you a really big question, and it's okay if you don't have the whole answer, because I don't think any of us do. But I want your take on what reality is. What is your definition of it?
For me, reality is like a virtual reality game. it's it's an illusion. It's
It is
full
an
of
illusion.
projections of, hey, I think this is a computer in front of me. Okay, it is a computer, because like our brain is programmed to prioritize certain information. And so that's like when we go back into like the psychic gifts, it's like reprogramming your brain to prioritize that information for you as well, instead of it being like, oh, this stuff's coming through, but like that's not important, like just kick it out. And yeah, so it's like a virtual reality game where we are more in control of what is happening to us than we realize, with our thoughts and our actions and what we say and what we do. And it can be like a really hard concept to get across, but also to like know, like for yourself, right? Because I'm like, okay, like I know this stuff, but like why can't I like manifest like $1 million then? Like if I want that into my reality, like why isn't it in my reality?
Right, right. That's funny. It's truth though. Even death, right? It's an illusion.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
all an illusion.
yeah. It's like the term Easter eggs. My husband's a gamer, so I know that there's like, it's like
Yeah, I'm
we're
familiar.
in a game of virtual reality, but there are a whole bunch of like Easter eggs that we get to find. And we're like, and it's like, oh, I reclaim my psychic abilities. Okay, that's an Easter egg. Like I know that I'm a sovereign being now. Okay, that's another Easter egg. Yeah, it's just really funny, interesting. You gotta
Yeah,
have fun with it.
yeah. It's interesting, and it's fascinating. It's almost like you're living in a movie, ain't it? And it's, I don't know. It's just, if it was a real movie, I don't think you'd believe it. You'd be like, that movie's crazy. They're full of it.
Why would I choose
That's
this?
right.
Time and time again. You're like yelling at yourself through the screen. You're like, don't
Interesting.
do it again. We've done that like 20 times. Make a different choice.
That's awesome. So could we touch a little bit on your book that's getting, when's it release?
I believe it's being released in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it's up to the publisher, but I
And
haven't heard anything back yet. So,
and
but I know.
what's a little bit about it? A little bit about your book.
So the book She Rises for Tomorrow is a collaboration book. I believe it has 16 different women's stories in it about us all rising up into like the women that we are today, to really empower other women who read it, who may be struggling, to kind of like give them that hope, like, okay, like these people were struggling, and now they found the light at the other side of the tunnel, and that's possible for me too. In my chapter of the book, I write about, I had to like, because it's only like 3,000 words. So I had to really condense my story. So I talk a little bit about like my spiritual journey and going down basically a path of seeking out answers that were all external to me and not kind of like finding the right coach or mentor or program that really like helped unlock me to like this better understanding. And so I found myself taking like all of these courses, learning all these modalities, and like there'd be like these moments of excitement of like, oh, this is the one. And then I would do it and I'd be like, okay, I'm bored now. Like, but my whole journey was to find my own magic and my own gifts within myself. But it was also for me to learn how to trust myself and my spirit team and my spiritual guidance instead of seeking answers from external sources like mentors and coaches who didn't really get what I was trying to put out there. Like last year, I was really into like putting out this Lemurian type work, and I had these top level coaches be like, you won't be able to sell that for more than $500 at a retreat in Hawaii. And like, you should just use your psychic abilities for like business, be like a business coach, because like you seem to be pretty good at that. So of course, I kind of went down that rabbit hole, but it didn't really give me a lot of like results with like getting in like a whole bunch of clients and stuff like I would have liked, because it wasn't in alignment with what I was here to do. And so now that I've shifted and I had found a mentor who really encouraged like what I did and was like, yeah, hey, like let's find out what this vocal like sound healing is that's coming out of your vocals. Like let's dive deeper into that and figure out what it is. And then we figured out together that it was me channeling my inner earth parallel life self, which we were both like, whoa, you know, like what? and so that was a really good learning experience for me, was to have that type of a mentor who encouraged and was in it like basically with me, and not like, no, just follow my blueprint that says follow these steps and you'll get clients, because they never worked. So I think that's the path that we're going in with the spiritual community and the new age as well, is following our own, I like to call it following your own inner autonomous authority.
Nice.
Where it's like you are the authority of your own life. Yeah, you can get opinions from other people, but you don't have to like leech onto them like they're giving you like the life preserver and you need to hold on to it in order to like survive or get to where you need to go, right? It's like, no, just swim. Like the water isn't even deep. Like you can touch the ground. Like
That's funny. So what are some of your, I guess, your future goals, and kind of what do you want to get out of all of this?
my future goal is for basically global peace. But I also know to get there, what I see for myself is I'm striving to be financially wealthy, because when we have people like me who are really connected to the earth and like humanity and like the things that are happening on a global scale, it's like, okay, so if I'm a millionaire or trillionaire or whatever, like how many people can I can like fix the whole world, because I have the resources and I have I guess the mindset like that need and that like desire to actually do that, instead of being like, no, this is like all my money. And instead, I'm just gonna like buy all these mansions and like travel around the world and have like 10 jets. And it's like, no,
Create a
like it's
vaccine.
nice to have nice things, but like my huge goal is to like have like a sanctuary or have a foundation where I'm just donating money to like animal sanctuaries and like shelters and helping like the homeless or helping like victims of sexual abuse and like all of those things, right? So yeah.
That's fascinating. Well, it's been a great talk, Joy. Where can we find you, and where can we get a hold of some of the great work that you're doing?
Okay, you can find me. My website is www.joyrachelle.com. So it's JoyRachelle.com. You can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page that's just facebook.com official Joy Rachelle. Instagram is Joy Rachelle Official. And yeah, that's basically it.
Great. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Dylan. It was a great chat.